Hello everybody and welcome back to the Entertainment Esquire. Today we'll be discussing celebrity trials in the context of the 2024 election. Let's get started. The breakdown of Donald Trump's 4 criminal cases are 2 federal and 2 state, one being in New York and one being in Florida. Let's tackle the federal cases first. So in 2024, so recently, just a few months ago, the Supreme Court ruled that presidents have essentially all immunity for any acts done during their time as president. Complete immunity. So what does this mean? He is immune for prosecution of the federal election interference case, which he still says he has a First Amendment claim to, that his free speech about the election being rigged was something that falls under free speech. But let's just say it doesn't. He now has a Supreme Court ruling that says that he has immunity from that case. So we'll see if it will proceed. The other federal case was him having classified documents in Mar-a-Lago. It violated the Espionage Act, having these documents in his home. Again, with presidential immunity, he can say that he is immune. It's also important to note that in both of the federal cases, he can give himself a presidential pardon. Yes, presidents under the Constitution are allowed to pardon others for federal crimes, but also themselves. So in addition to presidential immunity with the new Supreme Court case, he's also allowed to pardon himself. Also a note about the Mar-a-Lago case in Florida, they actually tossed it out. And so they're in the process of appealing it. So at this point, I don't even think they're going to actually appeal it for him to pull the pardon or the immunity card in the first place. Now, unlike the federal cases, he cannot pardon himself for the state, New York, and Georgia cases that are pending against him. And the Georgia case, DA Fani Willis is still trying to get him on election interference in Georgia. And so they have recently appealed to have her removed again. And so if they remove her, most likely they won't move forward. If they don't remove her, again, he will probably say you cannot have a active trial against a sitting president. So at the most, Georgia would have to wait until after his presidency to actually proceed with the trial against him. The New York case involves the hush money with the person, Stormy Daniels, that he allegedly had an affair with. Supposedly he manipulated official classified documents as it relates to paying her off regarding the affair. And so he's actually already been found guilty in that case. The trial is over. I think whether he was going to be president or not, he would have not been sentenced to any jail time. So I don't think this is a jail time case, but he could get a fine, he could get promotion, he could get home confinement. He could still appeal it and say, hey, wait to do the sentencing until after my presidency is over. So if Trump's lawyer's goal was to actually just delay and appeal until he could get him back into the presidency so he actually wouldn't have to face any prosecution, because essentially he could just pardon himself or use the immunity exception, well, job well done. He has definitely achieved that. Today we'll be discussing celebrity trials in the context of the Young Thug plea deal. Let's get started. So the 4 things you need to know about his trial and plea deal. So first off, he did not plead guilty to all of the charges in his plea deal. He actually pleaded nolo contendere, which is a Latin law phrase that says that, hey, you may have had enough evidence to find me guilty, but I'm not going to admit that I'm guilty. So the prosecution was not able to actually prove that he was guilty. He just did not contest the charges. And so he did not contest specifically the RICO charge, and he did not contest leading a street gang charge. Why is this important? Because a lot of the evidence was based on his rap lyrics. And I think for First Amendment protection, it's important that this case set a precedent that you should not be using lyrics as a way to find someone guilty. So I think it's great that he negotiated a nolo contendere for the RICO charge and leading a street gang charge. Now, for the guilty charges, he did plead guilty to 3 drug charges, 2 firearm possession charges, and 1 participating in criminal street gang activity. So he did plead guilty to some things in order to get this plea deal. The third thing you need to know is he entered what you call a non-consented plea deal, meaning he decided to let the judge decide what his sentencing would be because he couldn't agree with the prosecution on their recommended sentencing, which would have been probably over 20 years in jail. And so this non-consented plea was entered, and the judge was actually really nice to him, said a lot of nice things about him. I think she was ready to wrap this trial up just like we were. So the judge said, listen, I'm only going to give you 40 years, but of those 40 years, you only have to serve 5 actually behind bars. The 5 he has spent has already been commuted to time served, with him only actually spending 2.5 years behind jail waiting for this trial to end. She just gave him the full credit of the 5, although he's actually only served 2.5 years. The other breakdown is 15 years of probation, which is an exceedingly amount of probation, actually unheard of. At the most, people typically only get 5 to 10 years in probation, and then 20 years waived of jail time as long as he successfully serves that 15 years of probation. Now, the fourth thing you should know about his probation, this 15-year probation, is it's not going to be easy. He cannot go into Metro Atlanta as you see pictured here. He can be in the state of Georgia, however. He also has to avoid anything gang related in terms of verbiage, images, hanging around people in gangs. He also has to stay away from any drugs and doing any illegal drugs. And he also has to do community service. Now, he is required to go to Metro Atlanta 4 times a year to do anti-gang events and presentations to kids in Metro Atlanta. So some of those hours can actually count towards his community service hours. Also want to note the exception into Metro Atlanta, in addition to the anti-gang events and presentations he's required to do. He's actually allowed to go back into Metro Atlanta for immediate family graduation, funerals, weddings, things of that nature. So again, it's going to be tough, but I think he can do it. It's 15 years of these sort of restrictions, but would you rather spend them out in the free world or in jail? That's the question you should have to ask yourself. Anyway, he is home now. He was released the same night of his plea deal on Halloween. Congratulations, Young Thug. Stay out of trouble. This has been The Entertainment Esquire. Thank you for watching. You can find me on all my social media handles at The Entertainment ESQ and on YouTube at The Entertainment Esquire. Take care, everyone.